Hey, I'm Cairo Gashoro, and welcome to Let It Rip. We're coming to you from the CUNY TV studios in the shadow of the Empire State Building in New York City. Now, the obvious has been confirmed that the 2024 presidential election will be a rematch between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. But critical to winning the presidential election is the youth vote. However, many young voters have expressed reservations of a rematch between the two presidential candidates. Now, while President Joe Biden received an endorsement of a coalition of 15 youth-led organizations, many remain ambivalent about supporting him, citing his failure to deliver on key policy issues that affect young voters. And despite his ongoing legal and criminal issues, which have been mind-boggling, Donald Trump remains extremely popular with his base. In fact, a recent poll indicated that Trump is gaining more support amongst young voters. Now, here to help us discuss the youth vote and the 2024 presidential election is Tanzim Ajmiri and Alexandria Lockhart, both of whom are PhD candidates at CUNY, and Vanessa Simon, a Republican Party strategist. I'm Cairo Gashoro, and this is Let It Rip. So welcome to all of you. Really happy to have you guys here. Vanessa, what are your thoughts on the rematch?
I find it really interesting. We're in a different climate right now.
Okay.
For me in 2016, it was a no-brainer. I voted for Trump. I was not a Hillary Clinton fan. I'm first-generation Haitian. Clintons have done a lot of damage in Haiti. I was pro-Trump. I felt like he came and he broke the system and it needed that fresh air. In 2020, we had the pandemic, we had the economy, and then leading into social justice. I'm a black woman, yes, I'm a conservative, but I think the climate of George Floyd I didn't like the way our country handled it, and I got swept up in the emotion of it. So much so that I let Joe Biden disrespect me and say I'm not black if I don't vote for him, and I voted for him. And I admit that openly as a Republican. But to answer your question, it's more so I see what Joe hasn't delivered for our community, and in his time here. So for me, it's I'm willing to go back, be with President Trump this year. These are our two options. And I'm very upset that they weaponized those emotions from 2020 to shape where we are as a country now.
Tanzim, I'd be curious to hear what you think about that.
To say that we have to vote for Trump because Biden hasn't done these things, I think that it misses the fact that Trump is a real danger in ways that I think are almost worse than Biden. And I can't believe I'm saying this because I'm one of those people that always hated the idea of voting for the lesser of two evils. But here I am because I really feel like I have my back against the wall and I don't know what to do. I'm terrified of another Trump presidency. I'm terrified that him coming into office means that we will never have another election again. I'm terrified of what this means for Palestinians in Gaza. I'm terrified of what this means here at home with even look at Black Studies programs. The attack on Black Studies programs, you can't talk about Black history anymore in some of these schools. Do I think that it's going to get better under Trump? No, I think it's going to get markedly worse under Trump.
But what are your thoughts in terms of some of the things that Vanessa just indicated, that she looks at what Joe Biden has not been able to do, and that makes former President Trump a more viable candidate?
Well, I don't see how what Biden hasn't done makes Trump more viable, because yes, Biden hasn't done any of those things. Does it mean Trump is going to do those things? Absolutely not. To me, in my mind, I can't see him doing any of those things. I can't see him doing any better. And that's really the question for me. Is the opponent going to do better or worse? And to me, Trump is going to do worse.
Okay. Alexandria, I'm going to come back to you with the same question. What are your thoughts on the rematch between President Biden and former President Donald Trump?
My thoughts, I'm concerned. I'm angry that I have to choose between the lesser of two evils. Similar to what Tanzim has said, that I feel like my back is up against the wall. I think that both candidates are terrible choices for a lot of young voters. I think that, Biden, he ran on the campaign, to forgive student loans, and he has not delivered on that. Even with what's happening with the Palestinians, it's the way that Biden has handled it is atrocious in my eyes. I think it's unforgivable, to be honest. And I think that, we've seen what Trump can do. We've seen the division that he can create or exacerbate. And I think either way, either, whoever wins in the election, I think either way we're not going in a positive direction.
But many people would say it's your civic duty to vote. So do you have a sense of who you're going to vote for despite laying out, the cons of each candidate?
The way that I feel in this very moment, I'm going to probably vote independent or third party.
Okay. Tanzim, what are your thoughts on that?
Who I'm going to vote for? I really have no idea. I vacillate because, so the thing is, I'm a Muslim, and I know that, the larger Muslim community, the Arab community, there's really this never Biden thing. We're not going to vote for him. And I was on board for a second, and then I think about it, and I'm like, but I'm terrified. I am so terrified of a Trump presidency that I'm undecided at this point. I know I will never vote for Trump. Will I vote for Biden or will I abstain? I really haven't made a decision yet. I don't know. I'm leaning towards, I'm so scared that I'm just going to vote for Biden, but I don't know.
Vanessa, you're the sole person who probably is going to support former President Trump. But what's your take on some of the things that, Alexandria and Tanzim just said?
I agree with their sentiments. I think it's real, it's palpable in our country right now. I hope this election poses as a catalyst for all Americans to pay attention to local elections. By the time you reach presidential, it's so far removed. We need to become engaged on a local level, know who your city council person, who's the assemblyman, the local Senate leader that controls what happens right outside your doorstep, because that impacts your schools, your safety, public safety, quality of life. I really hope that everyone's like, oh my gosh, I'm here with Biden, who doesn't seem fully lucid in interviews. He is 1 foot in the grave, excuse my language. And this is a president. These are our two options. Right. And I hope that inspires Americans to be like, wow, what can we do differently going forward? But it is what it is right now.
Okay. Tanzim, I want to come back to you with regard to what's going on in Palestine. I just wanted to get your take on Joe Biden's handling of that particular crisis and what you think.
Well, it's been atrocious, but that's also, the thing is, this has been the policy of the United States always. Genocide didn't start today. It's been happening, right? Since 1948, since the inception of Israel, the U.S. has always backed Israel and has always committed genocide against the Palestinian people. So to say that it started today is incorrect. And I think a lot of people are viewing it as if it did, and it didn't. This is going to always be the policy of the U.S. We know what the United States is, and we know what the Western world really is, right? They're going to double down on settler colonialism. They're going to double down on racism. And they're going to double down on Islamophobia because this is what they do. So with that being said, again, when I see what Biden has done, am I surprised? No. Am I horrified? Yes, because it really is a genocide, and we are watching it. We see, social media has made it so much, for many people, so much more real because you're seeing the images all the time. It's on your news feed. It's over and over again. I mean, so in that sense, it seems more prevalent, but what Biden has done is the same horrifying thing that the U.S. has always done and that the Western world has always done.
Vanessa, I want to come back to you. I know you're supportive of Israel, but one of the things that most folks are saying is that it can't really articulate a reason to defend itself if it's essentially occupying Gaza. What are your thoughts on that?
Of course. So one, I can't believe we're back in the space. As a millennial, I remember being like, peace in the Middle East, all throughout elementary school, where we're really in a space where the Middle East is completely in disarray and the world is watching, right? So for me, being in support of Israel is one of those things where I had the opportunity to go and listen to Clarence B. Jones, who's a speechwriter of Martin Luther King last week. And he really shared just the Jewish community's support of Blacks during the civil rights movement as well, and them unapologetically and unwaveringly standing with us, which was another reminder why it's important to support the Jewish community. A lot of people talk ceasefire, but the dialogue has to be on both ends, right? I think we need to separate Hamas from all of our other Muslim brothers and sisters. Excuse me if I could finish my thought.
Yeah, but
so I think that's really important because you can't lump it in. I love people when they do a broad stroke approach. Oh, all Muslims are bad. No, Hamas did what they did. Send the hostages home now and have an appropriate dialogue on both sides. But I stand with Israel.
Right, but one of the things, and picking up on your response is that if we're thinking of this as an occupation, which it is, and I think Tanzim correctly pointed out that it's settler colonialism, how then can you just look at what Hamas did as opposed to saying, look, not only do you have to go back to 1948, but you have to actually go back before that, where you're looking at what England did in terms of allowing a ton of Jewish folks to come in and essentially, creating a lot of strife between Arabs and newly coming in Jewish immigrants. How then do you account for that, particularly with the Nakba, where you had approximately 750,000, and I think it's more, Arabs who were dispelled from Palestine, which is now called Israel. What are your thoughts?
I think that it's complex, just like our history is complex. You understand? I think that the dialogue has
it's not that complex. I don't
No,
think so.
I think it's I don't think it's something that, it has several layers. It's not something where it's like, yes, absolutely, there's a history. But how do we look at now, the present, and build a path forward? Well, like I said, what does that dialogue look like right now? How do we heal right now? People are focused on the past, and it's like, okay, we have an issue and a crisis right now that the world is watching.
Alexandria, I see you nodding your head, and clearly you disagree. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I strongly disagree about support for Israel. I think that as a African American woman, right, who has lineage to the formerly enslaved, when I see the videos of Palestinian children, right, getting shot in the middle of the street by the Israeli army, I see black kids who are getting shot by the police in the United States. When I see, Palestinian women crying, holding their children, their dead children in their arms, I see black women, right, holding their dead children from, movies that I've seen and captured what was going on during slavery time. I think that there's nothing complex about settler colonialism. I think there's nothing complex about white supremacy. I don't think there's anything complex about whiteness in general, right? It's rooted in violence. It's rooted in domination. And this idea of Jewish supremacy coming from the Israeli state just feeds into this idea of whiteness and white domination and the Western world, and that the Western world has to overtake, right, the uncivilized people of color.
Okay. All right, let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion on the potential rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. I'm Kerry Gashero, and this is Let It Rip. Welcome back. I'm Kerry Gashero, and this is Let It Rip. Now, as we spotlight the potential presidential rematch between Trump and Biden, we wanted to continue to broaden our discussion around policy distinction between the two candidates, starting with criminal justice reform. Now, many young voters have been extremely dismayed with the lack of progress on this issue. But who has a better record? Now, Tanzim, I'm going to come to you. Who do you think has a better record with regard to criminal justice?
Well, I don't trust any politician in this country who's a Democrat or a Republican to do right by the criminal justice or to really, fix the criminal justice system. I think it's a system that is rooted in racism and in white supremacy, and I think we need to recognize that, and I don't think either side is doing that. And I think, these little fixes that they're doing, this is smoke and mirrors. You're putting a Band-Aid on a stab wound. We have a stab wound in this country. Right? And it's like, this is not going to fix the actual issue. Our prisons are still going to be overwhelmingly filled with black and brown people. We are still going to be over-policed in our communities. That's not going to change with Biden or with Trump, really.
Vanessa, who has a better record?
I mean, Biden's record speaks for itself, but yet we allowed the emotion to be weaponized against us.
What's the record? What's Biden's record?
Just as far as how many black and brown people he's sent to prison. I mean, he's been in office since I was like a child, and his track record was there. But because he was going against Trump, everyone overlooked that. But bigger than Biden, which is what I always talk path forward, bigger than Biden, is let's look at the track record of just Democrats in general failing to deliver when they say they're going to deliver for us. I'm not saying, yes, vote Republican. Obviously, I'm going to tell you, I think that's the better option. But it's more like, why continue to vote for Democrats, when they fail to deliver for our communities? Are we willing to give someone another chance, whether it's third party or Republican?
But can we really say that Trump, and maybe you're not saying this, so maybe I'll say it out loud, Are you saying Trump has a better record than Biden on criminal justice?
I think he, for me, and why it's like his policies are a little bit more attractive is because he directly addresses what he thinks we should be doing, whether it's the Platinum Plan, okay, or even like, hey, Second Chance Act. When people are coming back, they need to be like let back into society and forgive their criminal past. Like he talks about steps. I don't see that from Biden. He's putting a kente cloth on, reminding me I'm not black if I don't vote for him. Just the typical Democrat shuck and jive.
But
That's what they
many
do.
people will say that Trump's First Step Act didn't go far enough. One, it was limited to federal prisons, right? And even this idea that folks should be coming back into society and being allowed to reintegrate in a way that's meaningful, that really didn't happen under Trump in a way that was meaningful or in a way that could impact people's lives.
So within his 4 years, as opposed to over 3 decades with Biden, he attempted something. Yes, it didn't go as far as we had liked to have seen it. But your question was about our track record,
yes,
track records, right?
Yeah,
I'm
but
just bringing it back there.
No, I just want to make sure that our viewers understand what it is that you're saying. So if you could be a little bit more specific, what did he attempt, and why wasn't it as successful as maybe you would have liked it to be?
Being reintegrated in society, that's what he speaks about. He speaks about economic empowerment. You have many laws he passed, even right here in New York City, with economic development and having the economic zones, right? You could apply for grants, small businesses. Black people were entrepreneurs. We like to be business owners. Where is the left on these conversations when we get granular? That's always my stance. I do not see, when we talk about smoke and mirrors, I see that a lot from the left. And once again, I'm going to wave the Republican flag, but maybe it's time for a third party to come up, another candidate that seems better. But I always encourage my Republican candidates and those on the right side of the aisle, we need to get into communities now. We speak with action now.
Right. But if you're talking about this sort of semi-progressive nature of a Donald Trump presidency, you know, how then do you rationalize some of the things that we saw in terms of Black Lives Matter and how they were framed as sort of this group that was out there being, you know, engaging in terrorist acts? What would you say to that? If he's
I'm just gonna repeat what I shared earlier. I got swept up in that. Like I was deeply offended in 2020. That's what caused me to vote for Biden. Our side did not show up in ways that I felt like were impactful. Then you saw just like the scrambling effect of like DEI efforts in companies like, oh man, like, oh, we got to do all things black now. And no one did it thoughtfully. No one brought it to the table. I really feel like there's appetite. The future starts now. Let's build it together. That's my mentality. But you're asking us today, the rematch between Biden and Trump, and I'm simply saying why I lean on Trump's side. But in an ideal world, we're talking path forward. Where do we go from here?
Alexandria, I want to come to you. What are your thoughts? Who has a better record?
Neither.
Okay.
Neither in my eyes, I think.
Vanessa?
Vanessa, I'm sorry. So like Vanessa was saying, you know, Biden has been he's a career politician and he's been involved in politics before I was born, and he's, you know, continued on, and his track record is not the greatest. When we talk about the 1994 crime bill, right? Like he pushed that forward, and just his stance on policy regarding criminals and people in the prison system. I think that, like, Trump passing that previous policy, like that doesn't sway me, right? I think that we're talking about real systemic issues. I think when we're thinking about the prison industrial complex, that needs to be completely dismantled.
But
And
neither is not on the ballot, right? This idea that folks are being told, look, it's either Trump,
This is true.
right, or it's either Biden. And as you indicated earlier, it's a lesser of two evils. You know, what are folks really feeling? And I know you guys work with young folks. What's your take on how young folks are feeling?
Well, when I talk to my students about this, they all say the same thing. They're like, who is there? They're not giving us any options. And that seems to be the overwhelming feeling. Like, we don't know what to do because we don't like any of these people. And we feel literally like this country is giving us nothing. No options, no real path forward. There's, you know, what do we really do? And I think that there's a lot of ambivalence and a lot of, I just don't know. And a lot of my students have actually said, I'm not going to vote because I don't like anyone.
But if Donald Trump is scary in the way that you framed it earlier, how are you going to be able to not vote and not vote for a Joe Biden?
Well, this is what I struggle with, right? And this is what I talk to my students about. And I'm honest with them. I'm like, look, I totally agree with you, but I'm scared. And I'm not ashamed to say that I'm afraid. I think a lot of people are feeling this way, that you're so afraid of what this nut job is going to do that you don't know, if you don't vote or if you don't vote for Biden, it's like, well, then what? So I just don't have the words. I don't know.
Vanessa, I want to come to you. I know one of the things that as a strategist, you've been trying to get younger folks into the Republican Party. And I'm sure that has not been easy given the political climate, not just the past 4 years, but going back to 2020. What are some of the things that you're hearing on the ground with regard to that?
Honestly, I joined the New York State College Republican circuit. So I've been going to different universities, GOP clubs, and Gen Z overwhelmingly is like, the GOP, we can't relate. So I'm hearing that on that end. So when we discuss path forward, it's like, how can Republicans do better with messaging? Let me give you a brief example. We talk taxes, right? All day and night, conservatives, taxes, we need more money in our pockets. Use the same messaging on the left. They'll be like, hey, we need tax breaks so American families can afford a loaf of bread. It's a softer message. It's kinder. People understand what taxes do. Same concept, different messages. So for me, when I think path forward, I'm like, that's what's needed. We have to understand even the philanthropic efforts on the GOP side. When I talk about going into local communities, getting involved, whether it's volunteerism or economic empowerment, but being active locally. Local politics is where it's at. When we're talking about systemic, let's start locally. Let's get new leaders in place that really mirror what our passions are and reflect our communities.
Right.
That's what it is.
But even when you're thinking about politics being local and the importance of engaging at the local level, it's Republicans who are saying, folks can't vote. They're the ones who are coming up with voter suppression laws. So how then can you, on the one hand, say you have to engage at the local level, but folks in your party are the ones coming up with laws to, in fact, with a laser-like focus, as one district court judge said, in terms of making sure that folks aren't able to get to the polls or making it extremely difficult for folks to actually vote?
I will strongly encourage everyone we use the cell phones to be on social media platforms. We need to understand how local politics works. I ran for
Vanessa,
office. And hold on one second, Kyrie. I
come
let
on.
you speak.
Let's-
One second.
No.
I'm going to bring my point home, I
I'm not sure
promise.
what that has to do with
bear
making
with
sure
me.
that folks can
Fine.
vote.
Give me a second. I'm
Go
going to bring
ahead.
it home for you. I ran for city council. It didn't make sense. I didn't understand how granular it was until I went to local board of elections, got our voter logs, You're going to addresses that are outdated. At the time, it's 2021. Our systems are so broken that it's like, yeah, we should use ID. Because the reality is, I could say I'm Alexandria if I know her address and her age, and yes, you have to sign. But no one's, process-wise, no one's really signed. And that's both sides of the aisle. You have poll watchers. It's like if people actually got involved in local politics, they would see how outdated and antiquated the theories are, and then we could be forward thinking. But that's why I encourage everyone to look into the process.
Okay.
It's easy to hear that Republicans are trying to do voter suppression until you actually go to polls and recognize how easy it is to falsify things on both sides. I'm being fair. On both sides.
No, because in all fairness, and if you're going to really make that argument, we have to be honest and factual on this, right? Because studies have been done and they have indicated that the idea that somehow there's voter fraud is so negligible that it doesn't rise to the occasion where Republicans are coming in and saying you have to get an ID to get to the polls. It's not accurate. And if you look at Nevada, if you look at Georgia, you'll see that they're continuing to engage in the kind of mass voter purging that is making it difficult for people to vote. Alexandra, what are your thoughts on this?
I think part of the issue amongst young voters, including myself, is just this idea that, these politicians run on these campaigns and make all of these promises. And you're like, yes, I agree with this. Yes, this is, this aligns with my values. Then they get into office and everything that they ran on, you're like, well, what the heck happened? Like, why aren't you adhering to the promises that you made? I mean, I think that's a huge conversation happening amongst a lot of young voters, and just feel that feeling of frustration. Like, we voted for you, you're supposed to represent your constituents, the people that, you know, voted for you. Okay. And you're not doing what we said that you were going to do.
All right, great discussion, but we have to end it there. I'd like to thank our guests, Tanzim Ajmer, Alexandria Lockhart, and Vanessa Simon. When we come back, I'll share my final thoughts on the current unrest in Haiti. I'm Caro Gashuro, and this is Let It Rip. While the international stage is consumed with what is going on in Palestine and Ukraine, we wanted to spotlight Haiti. As many of you are aware, Haiti is experiencing political turmoil that continues to endanger the life of its citizens. Haiti's unbroken agony continues to raise more questions than answers, given what seems to be unrelenting problems that range from political strife, climate disasters, to unrelenting poverty. But we wanted to place what's going on in Haiti in its proper historical context. Haiti holds the distinct honor of being the first independent black nation when it achieved its independence in 1804 by successfully overthrowing the French, who had brutally exploited and oppressed enslaved Africans. Serving as a beacon for liberation and self-determination for enslaved and colonized Africans around the world. That victory was short-lived when France forced Haiti to pay reparations for the property it lost as a result of the Haitian Revolution. And by property, France was referring to formerly enslaved Africans. France forced Haiti to pay 150 million francs, approximately $32 billion today, which Haiti finished paying in 1947. So while we'll see a country in deep turmoil, it is important that we highlight the root causes of slavery, imperialism, colonialism, neocolonialism, and foreign intervention that have prevented a true beacon of liberation and self-determination from realizing its vision. We remain hopeful that the international community will provide Haiti with the necessary aid and support that will allow it to achieve its vision at the dawn of its independence, to be able to independently determine its future. I'm Caro Gashuro, and this is Let It Rip.